Oh man, I wasn't gonna upload another video today, but I have to now. I have to. I was working. I was minding my own business, just doing some work, and I was listening to this video from John Harris about this guy Seth Richardson, who talks about evangelizing using a book by D.A. Horton, which was what my video was about today, about D.A. Horton. And so it's just so amazing how providential this all is. He talks about using Thebonics in his evangelism. Look, take it from me, okay? I'm a Latino, okay? I've grown up in more urban environments and rural environments, and my family's all from the Bronx, you know, we're Puerto Ricans. I lived in New York City for 8 years. Take it from me, all right? Don't use Thebonics. Just don't use Thebonics. If you don't know what Thebonics is, I didn't know until just now. Thebonics is trying to evangelize urban people. So like if you see a group of blacks, then you go up to them and you try to talk like them in order to communicate the gospel. Now, there is something to be said about contextualizing the gospel, but you need to be clear about it too. You can't just use the slang just to use the slang. And furthermore, even if you could, it probably is not a good idea, because when you're like white, when you are white, not like white, when you're white and you obviously don't talk in an urban kind of way, because everyone has different dialects, there's nothing wrong with this. You'll see this he's obviously, you know, a country boy, you know. But when you don't actually talk like that, then don't actually talk like that. People don't respect you when you're trying to be something that you're not. If you are going up to a bunch of urban people, blacks, Latinos, whatever, just because you see a bunch of Mexicans doesn't mean you gotta go up to them, orale, you know what I mean? You don't have to do that. Just be yourself, man. The gospel is enough. You don't have to try these gimmicks. But let's just watch this.
Well, what I would have to say to this guy, I mean, I wouldn't have to say it, but what was encouraged would be to say something like, hey, why don't we sit down and chop it up next Wednesday evening? Or you would say, hey, we're going to rip the roof off this thing on Sunday. Things of that nature. It's just...
Don't do that. Don't do that. If you don't use the word chop it up in your normal everyday life, then don't use it here, unless you're trying to be funny, unless you're trying to be stupid. If you're trying to communicate the gospel, that's the worst thing you can do. To start using slang that you're not even quite sure what they mean. Like, I can't even think of a way. You know, like I think it's Way of the Master or Living Waters, where it's like you do the good person test, right? Like, have you ever stolen? Like, what if you what if you went up to a couple black people and you're like, hey man, you have a Debo something? I don't think it would work. That's a bad idea. Don't do it. They're gonna be pissed if you do that. Don't do that. Let's listen to the most obvious thing ever in history.
Just an odd way, I think.
Yeah.
To present things.
When you would use Thebonics, what was the reaction that you got from those you were trying to engage?
Well, I refused to use Thebonics.
Good for you, Seth. Good for you. Just refuse consent. I like the cut of this guy's jib. I'll tell you that right now. Just say no. Don't do this stupid stuff. It doesn't matter if your pastor's telling you to do this. Don't do it. But ready for the most obvious reaction ever, because he's about to tell you what happened when one of his elders did this. So he refused to do it because he actually has some spine. Good for you, Seth. Let's listen to what happens to his elders.
But one of the elders, the one that I spoke of, he did try it, and the reaction was actually hostile.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
He was warned by a guy one afternoon and said, don't talk to me like that.
So it would...
John's like, really? Obviously, John knew that the reaction was hostile. He goes, he was warned by a dude, don't talk to me like that. Obviously, that's going to be the response. This is the stupidest idea I have ever heard. Thebonics. If you don't talk a certain way, don't pretend to talk a certain way. Be genuine. You don't have to trick people into the kingdom of God. And even if you did, Thebonics would still be a bad idea, because it would be such an obvious trick. You know what I mean? Like, if you... Imagine if you had to trick... If you're going to try to trick people into the kingdom of God, at least do it in a competent way. Thebonics is not a competent way. That's my advice. You heard it here first. A.D. Robles said, if you're going to trick people into the kingdom of God, at least do it in a way that's semi-competent. Have a nice weekend.